Hey, how's everybody doing? I've been having a fantastic day. Hassan, I guess, will be here in a minute. I was just on with him in VC, and Hassan watched this video. He thought it was very good. So, Hassan, he wanted to join us, so he will be joining us in a minute. I guess he's got to go get his water or something like that. But, anyways, oh, there he is. Okay, Hassan, I'm adding you. We're live, so don't say anything cancelable, okay? Okay, good. So, there's this video that a lot of you have asked me about. A lot of you have wanted me to review this video. This video is from a priest. The priest is named Father Jason. Do you know how to pronounce his last name? Charon, something like that.
I think it's Sharon. I'm not sure.
Sharon. But he is an Eastern Catholic priest. He's a priest that Michael Lofton has worked with quite a bit. And apparently there was a controversy where Michael Lofton heavily criticized this priest, and this priest, while doing a lot of other work, because obviously assuming he's a married priest, he's got a family, he's got a parish to work with. He finally steps back in to defend himself and to offer a bit of a paternal correction of Michael Lofton. And this video isn't really to dunk on Lofton or anything like that. I think it's good that somebody in a position like a priest that he at least formerly respected is bringing these things to the attention in the public order. So obviously, we want to constantly keep in mind his repentance from any fault that he may have, and always to be consciously aware of any of the faults that we have in the public sphere. Because a lot of these critiques are going to end up being critiques that are common in online apologetic sphere among a lot of us. So, this isn't any sort of attempt to watch this and just exclusively point our fingers at Lofton, although there's a significant problems in the ways in which he leads the discourse that we ought to rejoice in the fact that these are being corrected, because these are things in the public sphere. And because these are things in the public sphere, the public order has been disturbed, and therefore it's just and right that these things be directed properly in the public order. So this video is to, I guess, bring attention to the original video, to consider his words very wisely, consider Father's words. And there are things that we're going to disagree with that Father says, because for Hassan and I, we end up being a lot more on the, to put it very simplistically, on the Pope-splainer side of things. So Father does not seem to be exactly on the same side when it comes to his interpretation of what Pope Francis says, or of mostly Pope Francis. So, but we're not going to take that as an occasion to cause discord and strife. I've always, at least in the past few months, I've tried to correct my own behavior when it comes to certain traditionalists, because there are certain traditionalists, of course, that just act completely recklessly and stupidly in the public sphere and cause a great deal of scandal and are an occasion for the ruin of souls and act very, in a word, stupidly. There are very many people who do that. There are also other ones that have genuinely been themselves scandalized. And from their perspective, it does seem like they are acting in good faith in the public forum, from what I can tell. And therefore, with these individuals, we don't want to treat them harshly or to exclude them from proper discourse or anything like that. Rather, our goal ultimately is the sanctification of souls. Our goal is the ultimate salvation of all of mankind, both trad and non-trad. So it's completely inappropriate and completely unchristian, exactly what the Holy Father would not want us to do, for us to go out there and be unnecessarily inflammatory or to treat those who are acting in good faith. There's one thing with being harsh with those acting in bad faith, but treating those who are genuinely acting in good faith, who are honest, who love God, who love our Lord, love Our Lady, who love Holy Mother Church, and treating these people as somehow stupid or dishonest or reckless or isn't it so odd? Because genuinely, like, even on the Pope's planar side of things, when it comes to Hassan and I, very frequently, even with things which we say that maybe Vatican II, post-conciliar popes, Pope Francis in particular, say, while these things are genuinely correct and in line with the tradition, that certainly when it comes to both formal teaching and the practical manner of acting, that there are very serious ambiguities. There are a serious lack of resources and a lack of genuine exponents. Where with a lot of people, you can't really blame them for thinking in this way. You can't really blame them for viewing things this way. And it's perfectly reasonable for a lot of people to think these ways and talk these ways. And being how do I put this in a nice way, or at least in an honest way, uh, to be a sort of self-righteous jerk to these people and to pretend that they're stupid for not seeing what took you yourself a long time to see, or maybe, as Father is going to say, maybe even Lofton doesn't himself see the resolution that is authentically presented, and he himself misinterprets and misapplies the resolutions that wise theologians and the teaching magisterium of the Church herself has proposed to resolve a lot of these difficulties. To act like a jerk about it and to treat people as stupid or to treat people in uncharitable ways, that's just not okay. So yeah, I guess Hassan and I come to this as people wishing the for the salvation of souls of all, to wish for better behavior for representatives on our side, and then also to be people who genuinely do have sympathy for a lot of the people on the traditionalist side of things. Do you have anything that you would like to say, Hassan, after that brief monologue on my part?
Um, no, it sounds pretty good to me.
Okay, I see that there's a lot of.
I like the video. Obviously, as a objective safety guide, the usual like Eastern Catholic rejection of that, or like lack of interest in that was problematic to me. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, and also close your Discord because we can hear every single Discord notification you have.
hold
Hassan closing his Discord for the first time in 7 years.
on.
Okay, so first, Lofton, 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 McChicken Money, Lofton, 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 another McChicken,
That
two
is a
number
lot of money.
nines, two number nine bars, two number
Lot of
12s,
money.
McChicken 3, McChicken 4, McChicken 5, McChicken 6, McChicken 7. Thank you. I appreciate hitting our super chat goal within less than 10 minutes of the
All right, should
beginning
we
of the
go?
stream. Yeah. So, hope you all had a nice one, and as always, God bless. But yes, I appreciate the McChickens. As many know, I'm a huge fan of the McChicken. I think the McChicken is definitely the best sandwich because with a lot of the stuff from McDonald's, from my experience, besides the like McChicken and the chicken McGriddle, a lot of it ends up not being too good. But the McChicken usually is hot, fresh. It's very simple. The ingredients end up being quite it's okay. I've never had it to where I've eaten a McChicken and it's just been like a bad experience. It's always either moderate or a good experience. There's really good quality control with the McChickens. So huge fan of McChicken. Okay, fillet of fish money for Lent. Yeah, in Lent, you guys better not be sending me McChicken money. You but only be sending me fillet of fish money. Okay. But anyways, we're 10 minutes in and we should the McCrispy is not as good as a McChicken. That's ridiculous. Yeah. Mods, ban this guy. Mods, can you please ban this guy? This McCrispy supporter. Get this guy out of here. Okay, I'm gonna make us little. Oh wait, there's an inappropriate image. There's an inappropriate ad on the screen. So avert your gaze. But we have Michael Lofton come back home. It's 40 minutes long, so this is gonna be a little bit long. I don't know how often I'm going to want to stop this. Hassan can just start yapping, and then that'll be my sign to. Yeah, I'll stop monologuing. Okay, let's actually, dude. Can you answer this response to free will? No, we're doing. It's Saturday night. We're hanging out. We're watching the Michael Lofton stream.
He was so nice to you. Be nicer. Come on, bro.
I know. Oh wait, this is really nice. This really is really nice. You could, if you like. I'm scared of saying to DM me because usually I have like a really big backlog of DMs and I don't always get to them. But if you like ask me on a different stream, I will try to remember that it's you, Mr. Tyrannosaurus Zeppelin. I will remember that it's you and I will answer your question. Okay.
But dude, I really want to get into this video. Need to do like a mega video on the Thomistic doctrine of free will.
Yeah, that would be really good because a lot of people have difficulties on this point. Mm-hmm. But anyways, the Thebes problem. This is the priest who was on stage to bless Trump at the Butler rally right before the attempt on the president. Really? Oh, that's interesting. Okay, let's get right into it. I'm gonna put it on 1.25 speed. So any of you, I had on 1.75. 1.25 speed. He swallowed a dictionary before he started this. It's you guys will see if you haven't watched the video yet. It's the beginning part is like
it's really good. He freestyles part of it as well, which is even crazier.
Yeah, this is it's very good video.
Glory to Jesus Christ. Father Jason here. I've been away for a while, as you may have noticed. I stopped making videos about 3 months ago. And in that time, a few people reached out to me about a certain video Michael Lofton made in which he misrepresented me. I'm busy with my my parish life and my family life and doing other things on the side. And I didn't want to respond to the clickbait, but more people responded. And after thinking about the matter, I've decided it's best that I say something, but it's not so much in my defense, in fact, but it's in defense of a number of these other people that he has attacked in his videos that I've seen subsequent to all of this going on. And so I'd like to speak up, again, not so much for myself, but on behalf of a number of these good men that Mr. Lofton has attacked. I do this knowing that, my words are grist for the mill, so to speak, coins for maybe his business model, which is not based so much on, on the truth, but upon, conflict generation. There even seems to be a kind of a hint of a cult of personality there.
Okay, so conflict generation. Yeah, okay, you're muted, Hassan.
I said this is the beginning of the complete destruction of my
conflict. And then the conflict generation. Like, yeah, that's a problem. A lot of us suffer from conflict generation I don't think there's anything really wrong with conflict generation because in the our Lord has not come to bring peace but a sword sort of idea. So there's proper and right ways of doing conflict, but just conflict for the sake of conflict without it subordinated to a good end, that's a very evil thing to do. And then the cult of personality as well. That's extremely annoying because a lot of people accuse me of that as well, and I consciously don't like that aspect. A lot of you guys do treat me in strange ways that I hope you wouldn't treat me. Like even I've had before where people approach me at mass or when I'm at actually the guy who approached me at confession, he was totally cool. So if you're listening, guy who approached me at confession, you were really cool about it. But there's other people who approach me in like really weird ways where I've met in person. They treat me in really weird ways. But yeah, the cult of personality is definitely a thing. to where you cannot critique Lofton without it, being somehow disordered.
So, for those of you who don't know about which I'm referring, there's this YouTube channel run by a young man, and
calling him a young man was also kind of funny.
He generates I think it's his full-time income. I'm not sure, but he generates his income to support his family by often, not always, but often besmirching prominent faithful Catholics. So, that he kind of bothers to make a few videos about yours truly is quite a compliment. He's actually generated a movement, and I like to call it Loftonism. Stephen Jonathan Rummelsberg over at the Imaginative Conservative put out a series of stunningly concise videos addressing this neurosis that's afflicting Catholic media. His videos are far better than anything I could do. But so what is this thing that I call Loftonism? Well, it's a movement. It's a movement within the family of entertainment, within the genus of YouTube comedy. It's a species of ironic self-parody. I like to say that incontinence in filming oneself up to 6 times a day is its usual manifestation. The style of this self-parody is set in these prolix monologues given by a neophyte, engaging in rhetorical subterfuge with his well-meaning audience by insinuating himself as the interpretive key of a controversy, the subtleties of which far exceed his ability to appreciate and concisely articulate. In Loftonism, the animating principle seems to be a commixture of buffoonery and hubris, leading the protagonist to assert as equivocal that which is univocal, to propose confusion as clarity, then to disorient observers by a fusillade of fallacies. The denouement of this burlesque is to relativize any remaining differences as having no substance, then segueing to accuse the unconvinced of fatuity. The conclusion is a predictable series of saccharine soliloquies, feigning charity for the final state of the souls of those who reject those predetermined conclusions. The unique quality of Loftonism is the total obliviousness of its protagonist and his own acolytes to the self-parody unfolding before them.
Okay, yeah, that part.
Bro, no one edit this whole thing with a beat underneath. No one do it.
No one do it. That I mean, there's really nothing for me to say. Like, that portion was just, yeah. I mean, that was Lofton was iced. I remember I literally listened to the first 4 minutes of this, and then I messaged it to Hassan, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, Lofton got iced." Like, that's all I told him.
Yeah.
And then like Hassan messaged back. He's like, "Oh, oh, okay." And then he was like 4 minutes later, he's like, "Holy crap!" Like, messages me back. But yeah, that is it's, yeah. I mean, that's just it. I don't have anything else. I really don't have anything to say about this. Besides the fact that, when it comes to the cult of personality, when it comes to the matter of presentation, and the weird, both overly broadening of theological vision and the radical intolerance as well. It's real. It really just hits it on the head. I'm just going to continue. There's nothing else for me to say.
The only thing that I think he gets right, but we got maybe a little bit of nuance, is that Lofton will often take something that is confusing and has obviously been dangerous, and then will just insult everyone it's been a danger to, right? Something that was said that shouldn't have been said, that was confusing and dangerous. But as you'll see, Father kind of like seems to not go into that middle path of talking about like clearly differentiating between whether or not the Pope has said something very possibly heretical, or whether he said something that's just really not a good idea to say. He kind of doesn't want to make that distinction. You guys will see.
Yeah, Lofton's lacking nuance on this question.
It's true.
Well, I mean, okay, so the difficult thing about Lofton, I think he's hitting this here as well, is that like he will kind of do like a Mott and Bailey thing, where he will like in principle when he's teaching distinguish between like what is properly taught and
Hmm.
then like questions of prudence or any of the other factors that like Donum Veritatis will bring up of like timeliness, manner of expression, things like that. He'll like in principle distinguish between critiquing the substance of something and critiquing those other aspects to it. But then in practice, when anybody critiques those other aspects to it, he just like will latch onto that and accuse people, myself included, accuse people of like rad tradism. It's yeah. Yeah, that's
Well,
basically he's getting to this.
it's a huge problem because there's clearly like a lack of study on exactly what constitutes good obedience and and the concept of obsequium as well. He confuses basically like we've talked about this a few times privately, but I don't know if I've said it here. But when the Pope says something confusing and dangerous, the proper thing to do for an aware and vigilant person is to do everything you can to figure out what he actually meant to say, to actually determine. Unless you're just going to choose not to look at it, right? If you do look at it and if you do talk about it, you should try to figure out what he actually meant by what he said and accept that it might still be really bad, right? When you find out the answer,
Yeah.
accept that it might still be really bad, but be willing to do the work, right? The problem is that both the people that Lofton is usually criticizing and actually criticizing, not the people he just throws in with them, the people he's actually criticizing and he himself make the same mistake of not doing that, right?
Yeah.
Actually trying to figure out what he said instead of just coming up with some way
No,
like
oh yeah, yeah. It's like
yeah.
papal. You know, it's funny that the term papal lawyering is actually. I know it's like a
Mhm.
like online apologetics thing, but that actually is kind of what Lofton does. He's trying to find a technical way in which we can easily before the faces of people, because oftentimes, and this is the difficult time. This is some of the critiques I actually have of bodies like Catholic Answers with the way in which they go about things. They want to rather acquit the faith of the charge. You know, they want to let the guy walk. They want to acquit him more than they actually want to go in and to, even if it's very difficult to explain, and even if it's very difficult to grasp, and even if it takes a long time, and it might take, it might on the face of thing be very hard for a convert or inquirer or anybody else to accept. They want to
Mm.
quit acquit of charges rather than go into and follow the thread, no matter how long it takes you to follow the thread.
You find this all the time when the Catholic Answers type people try to do exegetical theology on the so-called dark passages, right? Like Deuteronomy 22, the sexual penal code.
Mm-hmm.
If you just go on these websites and look at the stuff they say, there is no precedent except some weird website that claimed something. They don't actually look into what the tradition says about what these passages mean or the purpose of them in the unity of those books from Blessed Moses, etc. They just don't
Mm-hmm.
think about that at all.
Oh yeah, the Old Testament exegetical ones are the absolute worst. But I mean, we see it in other things
Mm,
surrounding like purgatory, even like talking with some people about hell and like the nature of hell. Um, Talking with people about predestination. I mean, we've seen this in a lot of different areas that we want an acquittal. We don't want rather to do what is difficult and may cause not essential or direct, but incidental scandal with somebody to cause them to reject the Catholic faith. And it really is a form of like apologetic Pelagianism to try to simply present things it's one thing to actively try to present things in a convincing way, and it's another thing to try to present it in a palatable way. And trying to present it in a palatable way often has a lot more damage in the long run because, as Hassan says very often, apologetics is your first catechesis. Watching the
nowadays.
apologetics guys on the internet and reading the apologetic blogs or tweets or whatever, that's often for a lot of people going to be where they learn a lot of the first rudiments of the faith. So if you're simply trying to acquit, then oftentimes you get people who maybe they go into the Catholic faith and they're maturing through study and things like that, and they've never been able their entire life to meditate on the mystery of predestination and what significance that has for the entirety of the Catholic life. So maybe a short term win to like, get that guy to get over that little hump. But in the long term, as a Catholic, there's many beautiful ways in which these various difficult truths of the faith can be meditated on, and which we can learn, because everything which has been written in sacred scripture is for our learning. It's for our edification, and everything of the faith is for our edification and meant to be for our sanctification, ultimate salvation. When there's an underplaying of a lot of these things, or a mere acquittal mindset or a palatable mindset, it can cause damage in the long run. But anyways, is there anything else you wanted to say, or do you want to continue?
Not really.
Okay.
I guess to Trendy about Lofton being willing to criticize the Pope. Lofton is not ever willing to criticize the Pope based upon the actual reasons, which are inconsistencies with previous acts, or like tonal differences that cause confusions. Usually, when he criticizes the Pope, it's because he disagrees with something based on his own personal convictions, not based upon like a hierarchical issue within the authentic magisterium.
Yeah. I think that's a good way of putting it.
Not always, but sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Father Charin should have a conversation with Father Brown, as having such opposite positions on what Lofton is doing is not going to get through to Lofton.
That's probably true.
Yeah. Father Brown, I always liked Father Brown. I've always been confused about. Actually, I don't even want to go to that. I love Father Brown. That's what I'll leave it at. Father Brown's a good and holy Jesuit priest, very conservative Jesuit priest, and I hope there's a lot more like him. Okay, let's continue.
So against that backdrop, I wish to set.
Think about a child you love. Now take away their clean clothes, access to water, and the roof.
By the way, all of these like charities right here are horrible. Never donate to them ever. They're terrible. Okay.
Over their head.
The record straight. First, what I don't believe that I should defend myself. What more needs to be said? I'm a sinner. I accept that designation. I'm imperfect and very much pulled and pushed by pride, passions, people. My only escape hatch out of that sewer is Jesus Christ, Son of the living God. So, I'm not here to, defend myself against these false accusations. God's my defender, and I place all my trust in him. But I am here to proclaim the truth, and I will not stand by as people take the torch from the hand of good men, and they take it into their own thieving hands so that children cannot see. And I won't let that happen. So secondly, I'm here to talk about the forum for discussions like this. Ironically, I'm posting this on YouTube, but I don't believe YouTube monologues are the best forum for theologizing. I don't. This is somewhat different from like long format discussions, which are a step above monologues, because at least it's face to face and it entails real-time engagement with another person. But even then, that pales in comparison to pen and paper in a journal, wherein you think carefully and in depth at great length over the Word of God and the tradition of the Church. And in this dispassionate forum, you publish it in a theological journal. Your peers can review and help improve your thinking. It's an exercise of love and self-correction. All of these models, however, they pale in comparison to the truest form for theology, which is the church at prayer and preeminently at the Divine Liturgy. I also don't trust self-appointed oracles of the magisterium who use their shows to hawk their books, to hawk their merchandise, to sell access to themselves. At that point, you're not a physician applying the balm of Christ, but you're a snake oil salesman generating controversy to drive clicks to, pick up advertising cash.
Yeah, I think what he says, I think I would have a principled disagreement when it comes to like monologuing, because obviously, like, as you guys know, I do monologue, but I do think that there is like a catechetical usefulness in a lot of ways. Is Hassan, are you dead right now, or are you just? Oh, you were just looking down. But I do think there is a catechetical usefulness to a certain mode of presentation that is monologuing. I think you obviously agree. And Hassan and I have seen this as well with, because we deal with a lot of converts. I mean, Hassan's whole job is dealing with converts, and it's almost a daily experience um, where Hassan knows of a video that I did or that somebody else did that he sends to a convert where, sometimes, and this is just because we only have so much time in the day, somebody's asking me a question or asking Hassan a question or asking somebody else a question. And, these people, they just don't, unfortunately, they don't really read. Their reading comprehension is not too great. We don't have the time to go into VC with them and talk to them for an hour. We don't have a time to sit and message, and sometimes sending the medium of video actually genuinely helps people. Which I would have to ask Father Charan, I'll call him, what is his first name again? I'll just call him by his first name, Father Jason. Okay, Father Jason. I would have to discuss it with him. I'm sure that maybe he would make a distinction here between the type of monologues that Lofton does and the type that other people might do. But do you have any other thoughts on that, Hassan?
Yeah, I mean, I messaged you about this. I think that there's a big difference between a monologue that is basically like a carefully planned lecture with a lot of different distinctions made, careful notes. I've seen the rough like pre-transcripts that you do. They're very serious, and they could be edited and published as written material. It's just that the format that you choose to do it in is through speaking. So I don't think that what he's talking about is this. What he's talking about is, as he said, the guy goes on stream 6 times a day when he has a wife and kids for like hours and hours. And there's like a small amount of presentation of the actual issue, and then he just goes.
Yeah. Christian, can you really say that your monologuing is at the same level as your scripted videos? It depends. I mean, I really actually do sit back and write like outlines when I do some. I would say about half of my streams that are, well, actually almost all of my streams, if they're on like a dedicated topic, I'll re-review notes and I will go in. So I mean, it's a little bit more of a lecture format, but yeah, I mean, ideally, if the stars aligned and it was the type of material that worked on YouTube the best, I would just do scripted videos all the time, and you would never see me going live. Trust me, if if I could never go live again and just do like 2 or 3 scripted videos a week, like I would absolutely just do that all the time. I like doing the format more. I mean, I have like 3 or 4 scripts right now in notes. The 2 recent ones I did one on Christ is King, and then another one on St. Thomas on Islam. And I know that there's a third one. Oh yeah, the Mosaic authorship of the Pentateuch. I have a brief script on that. But I mean, if I could just throw those out there and do the voice recording and editing and everything like that, and just stick with that all the time, then yeah, that would be ideal. I think there's certain exigencies though that make it, as long as if I ever do, and I mean, I've taken streams down before where I haven't thought that I've done the best, but I absolutely think that it is a temptation and a danger to just stream like 4 times a day for an hour or something like that. But yeah, you're right. You're right on that. Okay, let's continue.
These are the whitewashed tombs about whom Jesus spoke. So third, let's talk about persons. I don't believe new converts should be leading these discussions. Full stop. I'll repeat that again. I don't believe new converts should be leading these discussions. Just look at 1 Timothy chapter 3. St. Paul says not to ordain a recent convert, or he may become conceited and fall under the same judgment as the devil. And people might say here, oh, well, we're not talking about someone who's ordained. Okay. So we
were literally just talking about that verse before we got on here, actually, Hassan and I. But
the application was more interesting, though.
Yeah.
Give them. And people might say here, oh, well, we're not talking about someone who's ordained. Okay. So if you give them a forum in front of hundreds of thousands of people, they're not going to become conceited, and the devil's not interested in misleading them simply because they're laymen. No, it's absurd. Of course, new converts, whether they're ordained.
I would like to say, since it's being brought up by Father here, I wouldn't usually go into this too much, but he's not just a convert. He's a convert who's gone through a meandering road through loads of different things, one after another, and a period of serious profligacy, right? As Father's going to mention. And so all of this added together, and with the fact that he is someone who didn't just convert to Catholicism, but left Catholicism and converted back from something else, right? When you add that factor, then I think that there are really serious moral principles. There are really, really serious, like moral principles behind old canons and procedures involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think apologetics to defending the faith, evangelism, spreading the gospel. What is it called with Father Father Lofton? Real? What is it called that Lofton and Father Jason are doing to each other? I don't know. Father Jason isn't. I don't think doing anything wrong here. This is a perfectly valid paternal correction, and it's something which was brought up in the public sphere. So I don't see any problem with it.
It's an attempt at filial correction, and then a paternal correction that I think hits on all of the non-doctrinal points very well.
Mm.
But the doctrinal points, we talked about this, but I'm a little bit concerned about.
I don't think Taylor Marshall will be considered a recent convert, but he's problematic for other reasons. But yeah, Lofton's apostasy is probably a bigger issue for me than the recency of his conversion. But yeah, let's continue.
Or not, any new convert that's in a position of trust and authority can become conceited and fall under the same judgment as the devil. Michael Lofton, by his own admission, hit rock bottom in what he calls a profligate lifestyle, as he calls it, which then morphed into a litany of denominational relationships. Non-denominational, Baptist, Presbyterian, Latin Rite Catholic, Orthodox, Anglican Ordinariate, Byzantine Rite. Where's this train ride going to stop? But now, he's going to set up his microphone and camera in his basement and start preaching Solus Magisterium Pontificium from Louisiana, much like his father Jimmy Swaggart did long before him on Sola Scriptura. Now, let's address what I do believe.
Why did he have that? That's one thing.
Truth.
Why did he need to say that?
Jimmy Swaggart. You know who Jimmy Swaggart is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I think there should be a lot more Episcopal oversight. I'm a huge fan of that Episcopal oversight to stuff like this.
Well, there's supposed to be. We talked about this before.
Yeah. So it's not only that there should be Episcopal oversight. It's that, like, in law there is an obligation to do this, and the bishops can exercise this obligation and are obliged to. Yeah. I should just upload my scripts to your blog. Yeah, that's true.
Wait, sample. It's not that new converts are supposed to be quiet. Actually, the OCIA text explicitly says that's not the case. It's not that you're supposed to be quiet. It's that there are certain functions you're not supposed to take. There is supposed to be a difference between, like, people who are still going through catechumenate and the period of election and people who've long since ceased to be post-baptismal neophytes. The OCIA explicitly says that people should be involved in evangelization, catechesis, evangelization and mission when they're catechumens. Yeah,
because I've actually obviously I had to read some of this for the work that we do, but I do think that there needs to be, like, a very thorough and precise treatment of the distinction between genuine Catholic action that engages in the public sphere of catechesis, apologetics, evangelism, and stuff like this. There's not only because a lot of times people can say they can have, like, their tradisterium that says that laymen should never speak in the public forum about the faith, but that's actually fake. That's completely fake, even by pre-Vatican II standards. Like, this is fake. Not only is it okay for a layman to speak in the public sphere about the faith, it's actually a moral obligation that people have, depending on their state in life and their native gifts and in accordance with the laws of prudence. This is an obligation. So we have to not be very hasty um, about not accusing Father Jason of this. We have to not be very hasty about by a necessary principle excluding all laymen from speaking in the public sphere, because this is obligatory. But on the other hand, we also need to emphasize the principles of proper episcopal oversight, because the one who is supposed to be morally directing and in both negative and positive ways when it comes to uh, the the apostolate of the laity that everyone has in all of the aspects of their life is supposed to be the local bishop principally.
I think there's two questions we should answer before letting them get away. One of them is how long is someone a new convert? So St. Thomas comments on the passage of First Timothy that Father just mentioned. And in that commentary, St. Thomas says that the relevant authorities can decide with their own prerogative and discernment whether or not a person is no longer a neophyte in reality, in reality or morally, even though he is a neophyte in time, right? And for example, the case of St. Ambrose is mentioned, which is interesting considering your username, because there was a certain divine inspiration that he ought to be consecrated, right? Then there's another question somebody asked, which is, how would you, Christian, not be considered a neophyte in this sense? I think I answered that myself earlier. It's not the case that it's just like, oh, well, Lofton's only been a convert for 4 or 5 years. I remember 3 or 4 years ago when I was looking into Michael Lofton's magisterium stuff, and it was very helpful for me because it was the first time I ever heard about the distinctions within magisterium, right? On that one article he wrote that one time. I used to link that to everybody after he spoke to Dr. John Joy. The real issue with this, with Lofton again, is not that he's only been Catholic for a few years, but that because here's the thing, he was already running like the Reason and Theology thing before he became Catholic, and he just continued, right? Well, do you expect him to just shut down? Right? That's not the issue. The issue is that he is not someone who simply converted from Eastern Orthodoxy. He is someone who committed the delict of heresy, the public delict of heresy, became an Eastern Orthodox, and then returned to the Catholic Church, with a lot of other stuff in between. That changes things significantly, and it shouldn't be forgotten. So
yeah. I don't think, because a lot of times people feel like it's a low blow, to point out the fact that somebody was a Catholic and then left the church in a public manner. But this is exactly a principle that's brought up over and over and over again by, the teaching authority of the church itself. There's a sharp distinction between somebody who is a normal convert and somebody who is a public heretic and then returns back to the church. But yeah, I think for a lot of people who would bring a similar criticism to me, I think I would have substantial agreement with the fact that when I started Scholastic Answers, I definitely shouldn't have been making videos or anything like that. Not that many people really watched them back then. I think that that critique would definitely apply to me when I started my channel. But at this point, I'm not a neophyte, generally speaking, it just wouldn't.
Yeah, ND Irish hits it on the head. ND Irish hits it on the head. It is pathetic that we let someone who was an apostate tell us that we're in schism for not agreeing with them. That's pretty much it. Yeah,
it's true. Okay, let's continue. Yeah, first when I saw this video, I thought that he was because I wasn't too familiar with Father Jason. When I first saw the difference in the cassock, I thought he was Eastern Orthodox, and come back home, I thought that was like an Eastern Orthodox priest telling him to become Eastern Orthodox again. And then I realized what it was about, and I was like, oh crap. Okay, let's continue.
Yeah. Now let's address what I do believe. I believe in the truth. The truth is not just an abstract principle, it's a concrete person. Jesus Christ is the truth.
So true.
I am not a heretic, nor am I a schismatic. In fact, The particular church to which I belong, very proudly, the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church, was.
What did you say?
The answer to the question these guys are asking, he's about to go very deep into the fact that he is Roman Catholic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The largest banned religious body in the 20th century. Did you know that? And it was banned for its fidelity to Peter. It was not for believing in the great Christological dogmas, the divinity of Christ or the resurrection of Christ. It wasn't for believing in those things that this church suffered its persecution. No. But it was for the lesser doctrinal question of papal authority. And for that fine yet very important point, men and women died. For this, all of the bishops of the Ukrainian Catholic Church in 1946 were either martyred by the Russian communists or they became confessors of the faith, like Patriarch Yosef Slipi, Mykola Charnetsky, many of them. And they spent decades in Siberia. So you bet I believe in the papacy. I've spent time with priest confessors who were exiled to Siberia for their adherence to the papacy. And one priest in particular, both he and his wife, in separate camps for this principle. And I seek to emulate their fidelity. I very much do believe in the papacy, and any insinuation on the part of Michael Lofton is an insult. And I revere the divinely established institution that we have in Rome.
Are you looking for a new fence or gate for your home or property? Type in your address and drop the red pin.
It's like a very touching monologue. I didn't know. I don't know much about the history of the Ukrainian Catholics, so that is a very touching point.
It's part of because the Russian government at the time basically saw like Roman Catholicism as like an existential ethnic threat, pretty much. Also, because unfortunately,
we are an existential ethnic threat to communism.
So true, but the problem is that people who were converting in Russia were unfortunately what are called Polonizers. They basically like really wanted to make all of the East Slav into copies of Polish culture and to bring in like all the French stuff and whatever, and people were very upset about it.
Mm. Oh yeah, everyone, remember to like the video. Forgot to remind you guys of that. Oh yeah, and remember to also like the original video because I think more people need to hear this. I think there's a lot of good points that he brings up. So that's part of the reason why I wanted to review it, to get the word further.
I believe in the divinely instituted authority of bishops and the priesthood or the diaconate. It's all part of a whole. Because I love it.
We can hear your typing, Hassan.
I'm not going to be silent when its enemies seek to give the papacy all it wants, nor to those enemies who seek to deprive the papacy of all she needs. There are excesses to papal authority, ultramontanism, and deficiencies, Protestantism. The tricky part is identifying the ultramontanists. The Protestants, they will self-identify, but the ultramontanists almost never do.
What do you think about calling people with an overly strong view of the papacy ultramontanists, Hassan? I'm curious. I've never heard your take on this.
We have talked about this. Remember when we talked about the issues in 18th century theology and the divisions? So basically, I resent being called an ultramontanist by people who don't believe in objective infallible safety, because ultramontanism was basically an insult for people who believed in non-laxist moral theology as well. Anybody who believed in laxist moral theology, my bad. Because a lot of the people who are arguing for like very lenient positions or lax positions on relationship of conscience to the authority of moral teachers were Jesuits, who also tended to be the strongest ultramontanist proponents. So I don't really I don't like that. So to go like I guess into the issue on the other side, people would accuse anybody who wasn't a laxist of being a Jansenist. And they would accuse even people who had written ecclesiology against Jansenists of being Jansenists because of particular moral judgments, even though they went nowhere near articulating a Jansenist view on grace. So, yeah, ultramontanist was like it was like the polarity people would accuse as being opposite of like the Jansenists and the Gallicans. So that was basically how it would go. Also Febronianism, but no one talks about them anymore. But yeah, those yeah. So those are like the different polarities of like the extremes at the time. So I think it's very important. I think it's very important to consider that like there is a track record of exegesis of Luke 22, which would be called ultramontanist today, even though the proponents of those teachings would not have been called ultramontanists at the time. So the idea that like objective safety is an ultramontanist thing is not like strictly true, but if it was something that somebody insisted upon at that time, they probably would have been called ultramontanist. So
oh yeah, Trendy's right. Both higher and lower views regarding safety would be considered ultramontane by classical Gallicans.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, PDF. I think there's one in the server. But yeah, if you because somebody was like, "Oh, why did you call him a Roman Catholic? He's not a Roman Catholic." Well, he's not a Latin Catholic, but he and every other Catholic in union with the Bishop of Rome are Roman.
Yeah.
In a technical sense. So there's a good work by Dr. Phimister on why this is important, because it may seem pedantic that we're bringing this up like, oh, you know, that's just not how we normally use language. But I think it's an important enough point. The note of Romanness is an important enough point for us to, gently bring this point up when Eastern Catholics want to try to distinguish themselves from Roman Catholics.
Okay, so 2 points. First of all, it's true that ultramontanism was used as a term to accuse people who just supported papal supremacism, right, and papal infallibilism. That's true. On the other hand, it was also used to refer, especially much more fundamentally, just an attitude of people who would disregard their local bishops in favor of focusing on papal authority. Which is also not healthy, because then you may as well just only have priests and just have like papal managers, which is not what bishops are supposed to be.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to continue?
Yep.
We also are living at a time in church history when the current pope says things that are prudentially questionable.
True.
I'm not questioning his authority as pope. I'm just saying he has said and done things that prudentially are questionable. And to say that isn't the case is fundamentally dishonest. So what to do when your dear, dear grandfather begins strolling through the neighborhood in his birthday suit? Well, it's just colder than usual, Grandpa. No. Or what to do when Noah's nakedness is no longer in a tent, but in the public square for all to see? Well, that can be a delicate task, but there is no love for your father when you blithely enable him to walk naked on the street at midday and tell people drunk doesn't mean drunk, or that the word couple doesn't mean couple, or that it really wasn't midday, but a very bright full moon. Nonsense.
I didn't like that one.
Now, there is something called spirited sonship. Then there is Stockholm syndrome. And which of the two would you wish to possess? Of these two qualities, I can confidently say to young people studying theology online that Michael Lofton does not exhibit spirited sonship when it comes to the question of the papacy. It seems more like Stockholm syndrome to me. Defending the magisterium from its supposed friends.
Yeah, and I think this point that he brings up is important as well when it comes to like spirited sonship, because oftentimes we are in an online sphere. We're in a very highly charged polemical nightmare with Sedevacantists and Lefebvrists and Protestants and Eastern Orthodox and everyone, and people in the secular political sphere as well, who are every time Pope Francis says something, in many cases rightfully, well, every time Pope Francis says one of these things that are questionable, very understandably, a lot of these people will latch onto it, misunderstand it, and freak out about it. And it feels like we have to defend in very extraordinary ways what the popes say, or else, our defense of the Catholic faith is just completely in shambles. A lot of times we can't just, hit it with a concerto. People just don't want to do that and just concede like, well, yeah, ex-church father this happens with the church fathers as well. Ex-church father was wrong about this, or ex-pope in a lesser degree was wrong about this, or etc. It seems like we're conceding that the other side is right, and therefore that causes a lot of doubts in the faith for many people. So many people hold on to this way of engaging that Lofton often has from a lack of stability, and it causes stability to be able to, no matter what, have your very easy response, which we kind of talked about earlier. And it's slightly different, I would say, the way in which we go about it, because we're not just seeking to acquit the Pope. We're not just seeking to have an easy response that you can, make a TikTok about, or maybe make a brief tweet about, or, have a sloganeering kind of response. Oftentimes it does take a lot of just consolidated study, but we know that obviously the certainty and firmness that we have in the assent of faith is not based on being able to acquit the Pope and have a ready, easy made answer for Protestant interlocutors, or Orthodox interlocutors, or Sedevacantist interlocutors. We know that it's based on the assent of divine revelation, which is evidenced through many of the motives of credibility.
I also think that this attitude of like copisterianism basically leads to like it basically leads to like a lot of people who would have otherwise been interested in the faith basically think that it just relies on like it basically just relies on the same sort of thing that Lofton accuses of people that deny objective safety completely, where he's like, well, it just becomes an unfalsifiable system because whenever the Pope does X, we go, but that doesn't count. So the papacy is still infallible or whatever. Well, it causes exactly the same problem, because whenever something happens that's really bad or looks really bad, instead of actually working it through, you're just like, oh, well, you see, it's not confusing at all. Everybody's wrong, and you should just obey this on issues where that really was not the right call, and accusing people of sin on this is a really bad idea. When this happens, I've myself met people who say, I can't take this religion seriously because it looks like it just depends on gymnastics.
Yeah,
right?
Simon says.
Yeah.
Literally Simon Says, though.
Yeah.
Guys, it's literally a game of Simon Says. Whatever the Pope says is Simon Says.
Yeah.
Few recognize this. Very few.
When that one Pope, who I won't name right now, said that there were contradictions between the Gospels, Simon didn't say, so it doesn't matter.
I don't know what Pope you're talking about, but let's continue before we continue this.
This is what I'd like to speak about. Truth naturally needs no elucidation. It is its own light.
Oh, I know what you're talking about now, Hassan. That wasn't a private theological work, by the way. So,
yeah.
And the soul of man is irresistibly attracted to it. Certain YouTubers, like Michael Lofton, exhibit gaping lacunae in their theological formation. I fear a man who...
Yeah, that's another problem as well. This is a very good video. I think this contextualizes a lot of the discussions that we want to have. So I'm sorry if I'm pausing it so much. But like significant gaps in theological education, like somebody who, is really hardcore on the magisterium, but they can't tell you about the virtues, or they can't tell you about justification or the sacraments, or they can't tell you about the Trinity, or they can't tell you about Christology, or they can't tell you about eschatology. Because the church fathers, what they're very good for is the church fathers reveal to us how all of these various parts of theology illuminate each other and how we're able to understand them better. The medievals are very good synthesizers, but the church fathers, not as concerned with synthesis, are more concerned with the illumination of various doctrines and their connections with one another, which, Vatican I, in its declaring the role of the theologian, says both of these are very important. So, having a very systematic knowledge of the magisterium, because for example, what has really helped with my understanding of the magisterium is understanding the assent of faith, understanding sanctifying grace, understanding a lot of these things, understanding law, like these different aspects of theology, they have very much contributed to my understanding of the magisterium. And I couldn't imagine having gaps in those knowledge and being able to properly understand this doctrine. Okay, give me 1 second.
Oh, man.
No, I'm back. My wife was just putting something in here. But yeah, let's continue.
Who's read one book. I love the theologian who has an interior life. And I wish to turn to Mr. Lofton and ask you, Michael, do you spend as much time listening to God in the stillness of your heart as you do talking about him into your microphone? If not, woe to you. You cannot, Michael, give to others what you yourself do not possess. And if the answer to my question is a no, then I urge you here and now.
This game, you're not ready.
This will never happen because the babies will be too big.
What do you mean the babies will be too big?
Their biological horrors conversation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, EVE Online will never happen. We'll never make it there, actually, guys.
True.
Life. Foundational deficiencies in spiritual, personal, intellectual, and pastoral formation of certain self-appointed YouTube theologians are concerning. First, because they seem to lack an understanding of theology as that science which is preeminently at the service of the church in truth and in love, never ever chasing after controversy. You know, when you proclaim the truth, controversy will come, but one need not pursue controversy to speak the truth. And this is what I believe we see with Michael Lofton, is he chases controversy to get clicks. I want to point everyone to the example in the Western tradition of St. Thomas Aquinas, who with rational dexterity would devise these startling arguments to either bolster his enemy's arguments against his own positions or to interpret his opponent's arguments in the most favorable light possible. And that's what we should be seeing with these discussions online, is people should exhibit that same kind of spirit of St. Thomas. Second, there is the crypto-Gnosticism in Michael Lofton's theologizing.
Okay, so the interior life stuff, did you at all want to touch on any of that? Because the interior life stuff is extremely important.
I think we've covered it many times, but yeah. Basically,
if anybody wants a good one, look at, there's two places that honestly like hit me like a train when I read it because it was so good. Father Woodbury, it's in the beginning. I think there's two places. It's been a while since I read it. The one place is in the beginning of his commentary on questions 1 and 2 of Prima Pars, and then also in his work on the nature of theology. I think those are the second one I'm not as sure about, so I might need, I remember the first one very clearly though. And then the third place, which is really good, is Father Garrigou-Lagrange in the introduction that he has to his commentary on Prima Pars. It's called The One God. You can just find it on archive.org. When they talk about the nature of theology and the relationship between theology and the interior life, it's very, very good. I would suggest very highly anybody interested in that topic to check those places for sure. Anyways, we've talked about that in many different cases, in many different circumstances, especially when it comes to the role of like a learner of theology. So let's continue.
I do not call it theology. This is concerning in Michael Lofton's theologizing, and I do not call it theology. This is concerning. The theology of the Church Fathers, it was entirely a commentary on Scripture. When you read patristic theology, it's imbued with Scripture.
And the medievals, Father Jason, and the medievals. Okay, we need to start pushing the narrative. We'll get Father Jason to say the Church Fathers and the medievals, entirely a commentary on Scripture. Okay,
entirely. But what we're seeing now from men like Michael Lofton is more akin to Joseph Smith, the founder of Mormonism. It's more akin to Joseph Smith playing with the Urim and the Thummim. These self-appointed theologians go line by line through texts of popes and councils without ever going into the biblical passages upon which they are built. They then freeze frame modern.
Let's go. The crazy thing is those popes tell us that we need to go back to Scripture. But yeah, the the exegetical tradition and how various texts which the popes bring up and how this is connect. Yes, absolutely. We love Father. I might actually email Father Jason after this and just tell him that I so very much appreciated this video, and yeah, this is like hitting on all of the points which need to be hit on, basically, and which in some cases Hassan and I have spoken about in our critiques.
Controversies. This is Mr. Lofton does this. They freeze frame modern controversies and superimpose them on 8th century theological controversies, minus important distinctions. This is entirely anti-tradition and anti-scripture. Another related point. We do theology within the spiritual and liturgical tradition to which we belong. You can't sing bass if you are asked to be a tenor. You either sing, if you're asked to sing the tenor line, sing the tenor line. If you identify as a Byzantine Catholic, as Mr. Lofton does, then respect that tradition to which you have attached yourself, know its saints, its prayers, its system of theology, and do it accordingly. Mr. Lofton's theology is entirely, however, anti-Byzantine. It's even...
What did you say, Sam?
One objection. It's extremely difficult to actually be taught Uniate theology apart from like Sheptytsky. It's really, really hard to find like post-Florence Uniate theologians. Yeah. Like, for example, we've talked about some of them before, some of the really big ones, but there are even like Byzantine Catholic scholastics who have just been completely forgotten. And also the liturgy of the Uniate Church has been transformed to just copy the EOs, even in things where the EOs have become less traditional, which is I don't understand that. So that's my only critique here would be that, to be fair, Lofton only is able to review English language literature. He should have taken the time to learn Latin. I remember years ago when he said that it should be a priority to learn Latin so that you're able to do everything. He even said ECs should all learn Latin so that they can go through the literature. I don't know what happened to that, but he is basically like Lofton as somebody who can only read English. It's extremely difficult for him to actually cover Byzantine Catholic, authentic Byzantine Catholic Uniate theology. The only place he would be able to go is Blesher Sapsitsky, and that's it.
Yeah.
So
that's a skill issue for not being a Latin Catholic. We just need to learn one language. That's we just need to learn Latin. Actually, that's not even true because there's a lot of literature in European languages. Besides the canonical issues with Lofton, there's also there's also his own uncharity to other Catholic public figures, a willingness to burn bridges plus locale. Yeah, those are issues as well. Yeah, I agree.
I think the lolcow stuff, if it was done as like an exercise in self-ridicule, then it would be fine, but it doesn't have the effects that should result from that.
Maybe he's like a holy fool.
I don't know. And then there's also the stuff like not just the lolcow stuff, but like, it's one thing to constantly rebuke Catholic content creators because they're doing harm. I would understand if he genuinely believed that they're all doing harm, but it seems like he makes like not very well researched like rash judgments a lot. One case where I think he actually substantially got things correct, but in his manner of delivery got it very wrong was Cardinal Zen, because I did a lot of research into that case, and I think his most of his criticisms were actually correct. I think Cardinal Zen was extremely wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it would be based if it was mandatory to learn Latin as a Catholic. Well, the popes tell you should.
I would argue that it is virtually mandatory, because remember the thing in canon law where it talks about like the right to form a Catholic spirituality individual to yourself, and then it says that and then all the commentators say that like virtually contained within this is a right to benefit from the fruits of Catholic university education.
Yeah.
And this necessarily requires the learning of Latin. So it means that like at some point, Latin, since it's been removed from the public schools, should enter into mandatory children's catechesis at some point.
Yeah, I mean, there's even I know of like
if 80 to 90 IQ Pakistanis and Indians can go to madrasa and learn Arabic, why can't you learn Latin?
80 to 90 IQ. Hassan's trolling his own people, so it's okay.
Yeah, basically.
Thank you.
But it's true. It's true that they are much less intelligent and they have much less good like memory, like information retention skills. Yeah. They're not taught how to do those things, and yet they can learn a religious language for the sake of literature and liturgy. Why can't we?
This is a good point.
Why do we need to see Latin as this weird elitist thing for priests and canon lawyers? It's just not true.
Yeah, we were like in a random conversation with a North African taxi driver, and Hassan was using technical Arabic terms for like Islamic theological concepts, and the and the taxi cab driver understood all of them. Yeah, why can't we use random, with some like Irish Catholic taxi cab driver? Why can't we use random Latin theological terms with him? That's the important question. Interesting that Lofton never goes after Aiken or anyone in Catholic Answers. Yeah. Finally, where can we get that St. Thomas pick? It's a pretty famous pick of St. Thomas. You should be able to get it on like art.com or anything like that. They can get you like you can buy the frame as well.
The only reason I didn't mention Bangladesh is because Bangladesh basically is Pakistan and India, so there's no point.
But yeah, the not going after his friends is it's natural though. I get it. Okay, let's continue.
Anti-Latin. For a guy who claims to represent Byzantine Catholicism, he most certainly does not do theology as the Byzantines ever would have recognized.
Oh my gosh. Why are there all these ads?
How could I put this into a little jingle or something? Like, Lofton professes Eastern Catholic creed, yet his theology in essence fails to heed. Neither Eastern in spirit nor Latin refined, but a caricature of the manualists, crude and confined. I don't know how I go.
He does caricature the manualists. I love the manualists. He makes them look bad.
For rapping, but
no, he meant specific manualists, though. It's okay.
Yeah, it's true.
Caricature.
He did qualify.
It's the Jimmy Aiken Teaching with Authority theological manual.
Yeah.
Jimmy Aiken, the great manualist. Okay, I won't troll Jimmy Aiken anymore.
Teaching with authority. Scholars call this despotism. Yeah.
Oh my God. That one's really bad. We don't want to bring in ancillary Aiken.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, scholars call this, real. What kind of scholars? What field are they teaching in? Because it is a magisteriology. Well, actually, it would be canon lawyers only if they were theologians. Yeah.
It's just crazy because most viewers are not like people who are gonna go and check to see where he got this or if it has any precedent. It's so bad. I hate that. The one thing that I really like about what you said earlier about like being against sycophantism, right, is that it's necessary to refuse to be outsourced responsibility to learn. The people who are in positions like you, like Wagner guys, people who are in his position, who have this platform, who have an apostolate like this, they're running. Their main goal, hello Tyler, goal should be to gradually make themselves obsolete. Gradually. In some generations, normal people should know the bulk of what someone like Christian has learned, so that the equivalents of people like Christian in the future can be 6 levels higher, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I hope my sons surpass me by very much.
This is so important, and it really bothers me when people think that they are like flattering you, but what they're actually doing is putting you on a pedestal and attributing some like hidden quality that's inborn or something, or some kind of like quirk of your personal history that means that you could learn all these things and they just can't. Or even if they can, they really don't need to, because they can just get it from you now. And by the way, yes, anybody in the chat who feels attacked, you're supposed to feel attacked.
Okay, thank you, Jerome, for the super chat. I think Lofton would win. I'm Chaldean, but I'm learning Latin along with Aramaic, and your channel is the reason for my increased interest in the works of the Latin tradition. God bless both of you for all the work you do. Thank you, Mr. Min. I always appreciate to hear that, because when I talk to people interested in the Eastern tradition, oftentimes it's kind of like something we spoke about earlier with a certain Franciscan brother who was interested in Shia Islam. It's kind of weird, but a lot of times people seek things in the Eastern tradition that is already present in very clear and distinct modes within the Latin tradition, and there's not really a reason to switch traditions just to get those things. Actually, if in every single case, it's usually like that. And then Lofton claims that the Eastern Catholic is a spiritual home. How can he claim that?
He didn't claim that. I was giving him that benefit of the doubt. I was saying that I think it's relatively inaccessible for someone like Lofton to access the authentic Uniate tradition. That's all I'm saying.
Am I fluent conversant in Latin? No, I'm not. Although I do want to become for certain purposes of Hassan and I's work. Okay, let's continue.
I don't know how I go for rapping, but it's just it's a caricature of the worst manualists that you would find in the 16th or 17th century.
I'm sorry, Father Jason, but that's really bad. I mean, I'll give him and anyone else who thinks like this the benefit of the doubt, because that's kind of what they're taught in their like historical theology departments. But like the whole post Reformation Baroque manual is actually super bad, and Lofton is apparently drawing from these guys. That's just not true. It's actually ironically a lot of the effects of the Nouvelle Theologie and the collapse of the educational environment in the post conciliar church that ends up producing people who theologize like Lofton. Would you agree generally with that sentiment, Hassan?
Yeah,
it's not because Lofton's out there reading the Samontechensis or Cayetanus or Suarez in Latin that Lofton is ending up this way. I think that's kind of it's a well-meaning but definitely not well-founded critique. Look up caricature. He's not saying the manualists were bad. Well, yeah, but he's still speaking as if there were certain bad manualists during this period who were doing things like Lofton is, and I just don't think this is the case. There were bad individuals theologizing during this time, but they weren't. They were actually a lot of their issues end up following from even the greats like our blessed Cayetanus. The difficulties they have end up being from influences of humanism. And not really from the influences that Lofton has. No, he's saying that Lofton is acting as a caricature of one. Okay, maybe I misinterpreted him. I will concede that, but I just wanted to clarify that. But yes, 16th through 18th century scholastic theology is great, and a lot of these people were very holy, devout, and learned theologians who did a lot for the building of the foundation of the theology, the greatest of the theology of recent ages
in the West. There's a spirit of strife and legalism there, and it's not kind. This is the worst of the new Eastern Rite Catholics. They attach themselves to the Byzantine tradition, as Michael has, for her sumptuous liturgy. But these people retain their old baggage and stale controversies. And by this, they wound our relationship with other Catholics, Latin Rite and others, which has taken so long to nurture after the misunderstandings of the 19th and early 20th centuries. So in the face of that, I can only say,
one pause.
Nurturing.
I think the main people causing problems between ECs and Latins are Zogbyites, not Loftonites. No offense.
Yeah. I mean, I think on the online sphere, it's definitely what he's saying, but like IRL, like yeah, that's.
I don't know. Online, the very public ECs are usually not like Loftonite Pope-splainer guys.
Yeah, but like the popular ones are though.
Who are you thinking of?
Michael Lofton. Michael Lofton and a lot of people in his comment section who've been.
Are they ECs?
There's certain ECs. Like I was in like an Eastern Catholic group chat for a while, and there were a lot of like more Loftonite minded ones. A lot of them were great, holy pious people, and I'm not saying they had the same mannerisms, but they definitely were in line with or dispositions or vices or anything like that. But they definitely were in line with this project.
To be honest, it distresses me because there's a lot of these guys who like the only reason that you can detect that they're EC is because they wear it on their sleeve, and there's no methodological, like Father is saying, no methodological or attitudinal or ascetical like awareness of EC theology, and they often they do this very weird thing which it shows that it's tokenistic, which is they do this thing where they may like say this is a passing comment, but they make all the EC churches into like one block as if they're all the same thing, when Syriac theology is completely different to Byzantine theology, and in many ways is much closer to Latin theology. For example, Coptic theology is much more like Byzantine theology than anything else, etc., etc. And there's reasons for these things, but they're all completely distinct. But they get lumped together as this other lung, which is not good, not a good mentality. Like what kind of lung is like one thing here and then like this bulbous thing on the other side? It doesn't really make sense. But about the ECs, like these ECs, like the ECs in Catholic Answers and whatever, I remember now. Someone mentioned them in the chat. I remember them now. They are basically like indetectably ECs because it doesn't show in anything that they do.
I saw somebody mention Nick Cavazos calling the Ordinariate modernist on avoiding Babylon, but I would have to. I think Nick is a good, well-meaning fellow, and I've had good conversations with him, and I'm sure he's aware that I'm Ordinariate. I think I've mentioned it around him, so I would need to see entirely what he meant by that. I don't want to say anything about it until I've seen it.
Division like that? Take your divisive satanic circus and leave town.
Bro.
We seek the kingdom of God, not a horse and pony show where your unsuspecting audience is constantly reminded to buy your books and subscribe to support you. Third, Michael Lofton's case is worrisome because he has no mandate from his bishop to speak authoritatively on theology, on any of these matters about which he nevertheless claims to speak authoritatively. It's a queer mixture of Protestant individualism, American commercialism, Tony Robbins' self-help therapy wrapped in high church lingo. These are simply his opinions. And for those of you who've studied theology, you know what the Greek word opinion actually is. So at this section, I'd like to speak to the video he posted about me. There's no need to give a rebuttal for misrepresentation. The interview he based his distortion upon was essentially a series of quotes I gave from church fathers on the topic of critiques of clergy, high-ranking clergy, who failed to preach the full gospel. And in there, I quoted all of these saints, Augustine, Basil, Cyprian, you name it. And no Christian is exempted from that, especially clergy, will be held to a higher account. So if Michael Lofton is uncomfortable with that, then maybe he should read Galatians chapter 2, wherein Paul corrects Peter. He would do well to study the history of our Holy Catholic Church, which he claims to follow this week. While
that was. Did you hear that, Hassan?
Yeah.
This week.
Formally teaching heresy ex cathedra, history shows that they can make prudential errors, ambiguities, and even temporary doctrinal missteps in their personal communication. Saints, bishops, theologians have at times had to correct, rebuke, and resist bishops and popes when they faltered in their duty to the truth. And these examples that I'm going to give demonstrate that loyalty to the papacy does not mean Stockholm Syndrome blindness, but rather spirited sonship like Shem and Japheth. That is faithful adherence to the church's perennial teaching and her tradition, of which the papacy is the foremost servant, but never its master. We've already spoken about Galatians chapter 2 with Peter and Paul. Most people who study theology are familiar with St. Athanasius correcting and going kind of toe-to-toe with Pope Liberius.
I think the Liberius thing is...
This is cursed.
Yeah.
I didn't like this part.
But I know. I don't like the specific, Liberius. There's a lot of issues with the Liberius episode, especially of the issues of forgeries going around, but I don't really want to get into.
How about the evidences for, like, the Transalpine Redemptorists? I had a page up once. I don't know if it's still there, but they basically posted their findings on evidence for Roman veneration of Pope Liberius I, which is very interesting. Wonder why they would do that.
Yeah, I don't want to get into the Liberius case. That'd be getting into the weeds a little bit much.
Pope Liberius, for background, was pressured. He was by the Arian Emperor Constantius. I think Constantius II. Don't quote me, but he was pressured by Constantius into signing this semi-Arian formula. The wording was whooshy and vague, and into excommunicating Athanasius, who was the pillar of orthodoxy. Athanasius is none too pleased with that, and along with other faithful bishops, he resisted and he refused to accept the Pope's compromise.
If a man really hated ads, here's what he would do. Day one, he would install Pi on his computer without spending.
So the long and short of it is, although Liberius later repented, this episode highlights how a pope under duress erred in prudential judgment and was resisted by a fellow bishop and later...
How is this an error of prudential judgment? See, this is where I take issue with what he said earlier, because this, if he did it, would not be an error in prudential judgment. It would be way more than that.
Yeah, the DTC, yes, I know that there are sources that disagree with this, but I mean, there's others like the STS, and they quote a number of historians during their time who agree with what I say. So I mean, it's a debated topic, of course.
Astro found a lot of interesting Latin manuals from the later periods that go over this in really interesting detail. The issue is today that the people who study church history don't have a manualist level of understanding of ecclesiology or development. So they, for example, certain people that we've spoken to who have a certain historianizing way of looking at theology, right? That's a very bad problem, because then they can't actually place into a proper context how that works. So they can't see, for example, St. Athanasius thinking that Liberius actually signed the document and be like, oh, that makes sense because these the precision on these matters hadn't developed yet. They have to say, oh, that's evidence that the precision that we developed later is wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to get into the weeds about it, though.
Yeah.
St. Hilary of Poitiers versus Pope Liberius. Here, St. Hilary of Poitiers, another champion of Nicene.
Yeah, I mean, there were theologians very early on, by the way, who thought that it was completely, like, all the works were completely genuine, like St. Jerome as well.
Orthodoxy refused to recognize Pope Liberius's lapse into semi-Arianism. He called out the Pope's weakness and maintained opposition to Arianism until finally, and thankfully, Liberius reaffirmed Nicene Orthodoxy. Let's move to, I think, the next century. You can look at, the case of St. Vincent Lerins and his controversy with Pope Sixtus III, if I'm not mistaken. And this wasn't regarding Arianism, but it was regarding Nestorianism. And St. Vincent criticized Pope Sixtus for initially appearing sympathetic to the Nestorians before ultimately, condemning it. So St. Vincent of Lerins, he maintained that popes must adhere to the consensus of the church's tradition. They're not masters of it, they're servants of it. There's the famous case in the 14th century of, Catherine of Siena urging the Pope to, restore the papacy back to Rome. There are numerous theologians in the 14th century against John the 22nd, and because he taught in his sermons that the blessed do not see God until the final judgment, which is contradicting the belief that saints enjoy the the beatific vision right after death. And so it was a whole litany, a whole parade of theologians, Dominicans, Franciscans, secular theologians, including a future pope who opposed him. And finally, Pope John the 22nd recanted before his death. There's the case of, Cardinal Cajetan versus Pope Clement the Eighth. There is
Cajetanus mentioned W.
Saint Robert Bellarmine is a kind of a well-known case as well, where Pope Sixtus V attempted to publish a very flawed version of the Latin Vulgate. It had errors in it. Not the Bible. But
Wait, are you? By the way, Hassan, are you aware of the Cajetanus? Which pope did he say? I cannot remember. Are you aware of that case?
Only a little. I've heard of it peripherally. I don't really know the case.
I'm not intimately aware with the controversy.
The translation that he wanted to publish had errors in it. And St. Robert Bellarmine and other scholars, they resisted this. And after Sixtus V's death, his successor, Pope Clement Clement VIII, he corrected the errors in that Bible, and then published it.
Thank you, John.
You can go back to the Monothelite heresy of Pope Honoris. He was later condemned by an ecumenical council for failing to uphold orthodoxy during the Monothelite heresy. Now, in Honoris's defense, he did not explicitly teach heresy, but he was rebuked by many for his negligence in failing to defend the faith with great vigor. So I just say all
Father Jason getting the Honorius controversy right.
But because I want to reiterate a truth here. While popes are protected from formally teaching heresy ex cathedra, history shows, I want to repeat this, that they can make prudential errors, ambiguities, and even temporal doctrinal missteps in their personal communication. Saints, bishops, theologians have at times had to correct, rebuke, and resist popes when they faltered. These examples demonstrate that loyalty to the papacy does not mean Stockholm Syndrome blindness, but rather spiritual sonship.
Thank you.
Faithful adherence to the church's perennial tradition, of which the papacy, I want to repeat this, is the foremost servant, but never master over. Let me give a modern example of this in church history. Is when Rome sent delegates to Ukraine in 1991 to pressure our church leadership at the time to give in to the demands of the communist-controlled Moscow Patriarchate. And here you have a loyal church, a church of the catacombs nonetheless, which suffered for Peter, being told by representatives of Peter to submit to people who were already plotting to undermine her union with Rome. And in the face of this, Metropolitan Archbishop Vladimir Sternyuk courageously walked out of the room. He resisted Peter to support Peter.
Where I grew up, I see children suffering from poverty. I've seen the impact on kids. 1 in 5.
Don't donate to that.
So let's turn the page on that. And I'd like to address, again, this isn't about defense of me. This is about defense of good men who cannot defend themselves. Regarding Michael Lofton's running personal diatribes against the good Bishop Strickland. Michael, what are we to make of the church's encouragement to venerate Saint Hippolytus? What do you think of that? Do you raise your voice against the church, or do you submit to the church? Do you venerate Saint Hippolytus? Saint Hippolytus is a saint, isn't he? But are you not aware that he was an anti-pope? He's also one of the most important theologians of the 2nd and 3rd centuries. His anaphora, composed in Greek while in Rome, was the inspiration, or indirect inspiration, for the new Eucharistic prayers in the Roman.
That's probably historically
the Second Vatican Council.
That's probably not actually a Roman anaphora. That's like a liturgical reform era mistake, probably. I think it's most probably the case that something like the Roman canon was always being used in Rome.
Yeah. Also, do you think that Hippolytus was actually an anti-pope? I know that there's disagreement on that as well. Not that it was really. No, I don't think
the general position
anti-pope being venerated.
The general position in the tradition is that he like realized and repented at some point. But I think there's I think it's very, very different when you can. I think a much better example would be Saint Vincent Ferrer and other followers of the wrong obediences. So.
Oh yeah, Deadpool. I have your email. It was going to take me a little bit. I was responding to my backlog of like emails and stuff and messages. And I didn't get to yours, but I still have it. I'm planning early next week. I just had to gather some notes and stuff. I wanted to make sure I had a good response, extensive with like other resources I could point you to and things like that. But yeah, I'm gonna get to that. I promise I haven't forgotten about you. Sorry that it's taken me a little bit to respond. Giovanni, is there any difference in obligation depending on who is criticizing the Pope? Does my duty change when I'm responding to Wagner making a valid criticism of Pope Francis versus like Jay Dyer doing it? I don't know what you mean by this. Like your obligation to listen, or
he's saying like, is it better to please ban this Jake Green atheist guy? He's like the most gay, uninteresting troller ever.
Okay, I'll pay.
So basically, I actually completely lost my train of thought. What did you ask?
I was confused by the sense of Giovanni's question.
Oh yeah, so it's like, imagine that you have a brother who is saying, "Hey, I think Dad might have made a mistake in something that he said yesterday, and it may have been a pretty serious mistake, and it may have caused some damage," right? Versus like a guy who specifically tells you that your father is like a jerk and that he's terrible and he has no respect for your father and he spits on his legacy, etc., right? And he comes up to like get in your face about mistakes that your dad is making, right? If you have like like the proper affections that are supposed to come with the Sacrum Religiosum towards the Pope, then you're obviously not going to be happy with listening to Jay Dyer's criticisms, over a Catholics.
Mm-hmm.
That's also true, Trendy.
That is true. If I get enslaved, am I allowed to free myself? Considering the fact that slavery is probably not legally binding where you're from, if you happen to be actually just read Philemon if you want to know. Read Philemon if you want to know more. Since we're talking about biblical exegesis, read Philemon. You should go back to if you happen to be legally enslaved, you should go back to your master and exhort him in Christian charity to release you from slavery.
You see what Lapide says about this in Exodus.
What do you say, Hassan?
See what Lapide says about this in his Exodus commentary.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, somebody asked me about, I don't know if you ever watched that, that stream, but somebody asked me about the Swan Sona stream on slavery, and I was like, I don't want to like freestyle something like that. That's a difficulty too with like the Q&A format is sometimes you get questions like the one on Anglican orders. Like you get questions that you would rather like sit down and gather materials on than answer off the cuff.
I actually went into his live chat during the video, during the like post thing review, and I covered all the basic problems. He ignored most of the things I said, but nonetheless, he basically, not because he wanted to remove them, it was because he said something about a professor at a school that he wanted to remove. But he deleted the video and re-uploaded it, which of course expunges the entire live chat. So
game over.
Yeah.
Father Jason is wrong about many of his interpretations of history and many church fathers' writings. He appoints himself magisterial discretion in judging the chair of Peter. Come on now, bro. That's just like a complete.
This is really such a dumb comment. He's siding with the dominant strand within his own particular church and its like way of thinking about the papacy, right? Second, he's also going alongside a particular strand of Latin Catholic thought that has existed for centuries.
Yeah, I mean, there's eminent theologians. Yeah. There's eminent theologians. Even popes, even becoming high-ranking clerics, who in their writings take like differing interpretations on some of these historical matters. You can't just say stuff like that and implicate so many very good, holy, pious, and loyal servants of the church. Like this is a problem I have a lot of times with the Loftonism. Is we need to be a little bit more humble about the ways in which like we're making these statements about our own interpretations. Like I could be completely wrong about the way in which I interpret the Liberia situation, depending on historical criticism or something like that. Like my faith in the dogmas of the church and in the continuous interpretation of sacred scripture on the basis of the fathers, theologians, and doctors of the church and of the magisterial interpretation of these texts. Like this doesn't depend on this or that historical controversy. So you gotta just chill about saying stuff like that. You do realize that like your words mean stuff. You can't just you're not just like vomiting out words into a live stream chat and they're not going to be held accountable for what you say. Like there, you have to be careful about like who you're implicating. You're not just implicating Father Jason. You're implicating a lot of different people, even if we disagree with him. Like don't take our statements of disagreement or whatever positions we hold personally, and then take that to be a some sort of like sharp rebuke against these people, or saying just absolutely like vile things about somebody, like he appoints himself magisterial discretion in judging the chair of Peter. Do you know how serious a charge it is to say that somebody's judging the chair of Peter? Do you know how serious of a sin that is? It's like when Lofton calls random people schismatics. Like, do you know how serious it is to call somebody a schismatic? If they're a schismatic, they're going to hell. You realize that, right? Schismatics go to hell. All of them. Every single schismatic goes to hell. Okay? It's a mortal sin against charity. So just be very careful about what you're saying about people. Judging the chair of Peter, that's not just some sort of light thing to say about somebody. Just please, like I'm not saying this to be a jerk to you. I'm saying this because, I think that you're doing something damaging to yourself. Okay? Just chill. Just chill, be humble, and show a degree of self-knowledge and a degree of respect for other people who are putting out some good content that we can learn from. Okay.
By the way, check your Discord. I don't want to say it in the stream. Something needs to be dealt with.
Okay. I'll continue the video and I'll check that real quick.
Okay.
Now, Bishop Strickland is a Catholic in good standing, and by no means is he anywhere in the anti-pope category. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's nowhere near being in an anti-pope category. But if your mother, the church, can recognize Saint Hippolytus, Saints Robert Bellarmine, Hilary, Poitiers, Athanasius, Vincent Larens, Catherine, Paul as saints, then can you not extend that same standard to Bishop Strickland, who has simply raised his voice in respectful tenor against things that are clearly of concern to honest
That's
observers?
a little bit. That's this comment is a little bit unreal. He did more than that. I think everybody knows that.
Okay.
This is not about contesting the legitimate teaching authority of the Pope, as you accused me of doing in the video. No. To do so, Michael, is a fundamentally dishonest bait and switch, especially for someone who claims to be a theologian in the footsteps of Jesus Christ. If you persist in misrepresenting people, then you have harmed yourself in the end. Instead of being a herald of the truth, you will become a shell of a Christian. Your pastel thumb paintings of people's positions, they lack subtlety, nuance, depth, and humility in the face of your betters.
Yeah.
Not me, but men whose names I will mention shortly. That's all I'm going to say about your misrepresentation of my words. I'll let God and you deal with that. I do forgive you. I wish you well. But I, at the same time, love you enough to say, brother, repent. I wish to defend so many of the righteous men upon whom you have done like a drive-by shooting of their good names. Men who can't defend themselves right now. I think of St. Cyprian, whom you brashly accused of holding to a heretical form of ecclesiology, and by extension, imputed error to the late Cardinal Avery Dulles, who happened to think that there was a place for St. Cyprian's ecclesiology in modern theology. I think you owe the memory of the late St. Cyprian and the late great Cardinal Dulles a public apology. I think you owe an apology to those who actually understand the magisterium, like Ed Fazer. You need to make distinctions between levels of authority in authoritative teaching in the magisterium, lest in the zeal of this ultramontanism you seem to possess, you continue slandering the good men who actually are doing the work of God by defending the magisterium, by pushing back against obvious abuses and excesses. You need to read what someone named Cardinal Ratzinger wrote in 1990 on the ecclesial vocation of the theologian. It was a
Come on, Father, please. No.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Ed Fazer. We've had
there's a lot he's very good at.
Yeah, I think some of
magisteriology is not one of them.
We're just no Ed Fazer, his he actually does invoke some good resources, and he properly just like some point that I will compliment Ed Fazer. Okay, a point that in his magisteriology I found to be very helpful is he provides like an excessive amounts of resources in the interpretation of Donum Veritatis when it comes to what actually is meant by like a public versus a private critique. I think in like how, for example, doing a journal article or writing a monograph or something like that, that's not public critiquing of the magisterium. By public, we're talking about, like maybe a YouTube video or maybe a tweet or, like it's a lot different now. And it would be nice if there was some updating of some of the bounds from the magisterium with some clarification. But I did find Ed Fazer to be helpful on that with some of the sources he brought forward. So I will compliment Ed Fazer, okay? Despite our disagreements in the past.
Oh no! Now the Lofton Bros are coming out in force.
The Lofton Bros are coming
in. A priest who is making a paternal correction of a man in public because of the scope of the man's influence and the effects of his words is completely fine. And the fact that he uses a big degree of sharpness is explainable from the gravity which he explains that he believes in and why he believes it, of the effects of what Lofton is doing, and also the manner of its effect that he's believing that it's having on his soul, from the personal effects which he has seen himself that he considers to discern as effects of sin upon the soul. He is in a position to do that. He is allowed to do that. You can't just say, "Well, I know Lofton. I don't know Father very well. I've benefited a bunch from Lofton stuff, and therefore I'm gonna create walls around criticism of this guy." Look, I benefited. I mentioned earlier I benefited a bunch from Lofton in his earlier years when his content and format was very different. I'm not gonna deny that. It doesn't stop all of this stuff from being really bad stuff, and doing the weird tone policing stuff against a priest who is a priest of his right, who is correcting him as a priest of his right very explicitly. You can't. What you're saying is not appropriate at all.
Yeah, this is very terrible. Like this accusation, like why the hell would you say this? And it triggers me to remember one thing Lofton said. There was a priest of Lofton's congregation who told Lofton's wife to divorce him. I don't know why this Father Jason came to mind. You idiot. He was Latin right before he apostatized. You moron. Why would you think Father Jason's his local Latin parish priest in Louisiana? You idiot. Why would you say this about him?
Please go and look up a definition of rash judgment and then consider not pressing enter on a single message for the next 2 weeks. My goodness.
This is so cursed. That's all I do is criticize other people. All I do, really, bro? Okay, I'm not even going to dignify this. That's terrible. That's not all I do.
Document called Donum Veritatis. You do very well to study that, and if memory serves, to study the paragraphs 23 to 24. But in case I'm missing it, just do paragraphs 20 to 25. You won't be harmed by it. Getting back to apologies, you owe an apology to the patriarch of my church for what your criticism of him, of Cardinal Burke, of Cardinal Zen, of Ed Fazer. But I wish to focus on your misrepresentation of Father Thomas Winandy, whom I believe has been unjustly criticized by you. Now, Father Winandy was accurate when he once stated that much of what passes for contemporary Catholic theology is not founded upon an assent of faith in the divine deposit of revelation
True.
as proclaimed in the sacred scriptures and developed within the living moral tradition and doctrinal tradition of the church. Most of what passes for contemporary Catholic theology is not based upon those things. It should be, but it's not.
True.
And the same goes for talking heads on YouTube. Father Wenandy is a man you should respect greatly. He did a doctorate in historical theology at King's College 50 years ago. He taught at Oxford, at Georgetown, at Mount St. Mary's, at Franciscan University, probably other places that I'm not aware. He is a member of all the significant theological societies that matter. Catholic Theological Society of America, Fellowship of Catholic Scholars, North American Patristic Society, the list goes on. I think he was, in addition to all of this, for 8 years, he was the executive director of the Secretariat for Doctrine and Pastoral Practice at the USCCB. So given all this, for you, Michael,
this is what Ivy League universities you can get into with a 3.6 GPA.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Look at all the people. Not a single white guy. Oh, wow. Okay. 3.6 GPA. Not a single white guy in there. Yeah.
Real.
It's shocking. Wow. If you want a real truth nuke, look up how I got into medical school with a 3.0 GPA on YouTube and see if you notice a similarity between all the people making YouTube videos on that. But somebody asked me, can you do an Archbishop Lefebvre video? I'm curious to hear your thoughts about him. No, I don't want to do that.
There's already an SSPX video that you made with Jerome. Why don't people just use that? They don't need to cover it over and over.
Yeah, but not like a specific edited video.
Just I guess look at the truth of the matter here. For you on your 5th or 6th or 7th denomination, I don't know, to be criticizing Father Wenandy is rich. I mean, it's intemperate, it's acerbic, it just seems even corporal. Even St. Paul, and you're no St. Paul, neither am I, but even St. Paul, who was a student of Gamaliel, he spent almost 10 years in introspection and obscurity before he dared to open his mouth.
Oh, if you want to hear about this is really good. Look at the video that I just did. Well, it's me doing Francis Sylvius. He was a theologian of the Baroque period. He has a homily on St. Thomas Aquinas, and he talks about how St. Thomas Aquinas followed this in bringing forth his fruit in due season. It's a very good reflection on exactly what Father Jason's talking about.
Michael, from the time I began priestly formation around 1994, I've seen a lot of smart and articulate guys come and go, a lot of them. And it's almost always pride that does them in. So I get back to this question. How is your interior life, son? How is it? You can't give what you don't have. In your video against Father Wenandy and in many others, your modus operandi is to claim that you're exposing the subject's veiled heterodoxy and that you alone are going to demonstrate how he or she has misrepresented the truth. Just submit to Michael's gaslighting and misrepresentation, and the fog of your confusion will dissipate. People, don't bother getting out of the cave. Just keep looking at the shadows on the cave wall, but support me on Patreon. The subtext here is that the new convert with his camera and microphone in his basement possesses a secret knowledge illuminated by the voltage of his own intellect that's going to guide the new generation of spiritual seekers in America to his interpretation of Catholicism, much like Richard McBrien before him. The problem is that it lacks community, humility, and authority. Further, it possesses hints of ultramontanism, Gnosticism, rationalism, and is seasoned with distinct notes of Jerry Springerism. A few years of parading around in your Catholic cosplay outfit, thinking that you've earned the right to sneer at the wisdom of those who've actually devoted decades and decades to the faith is nothing short of, slapstick theatrics, not sanctified theology. You are doing backstrokes, Michael, in a kiddie pool, while these men are swimming in an ocean of profound depth and introspection. Michael, son, with your embryonic grasp of theology, you're presuming to cast aspersions on the lifelong devotion of your elders, like Patriarch Sviatoslav, Cardinal Zen, Burke, Muller, Bishop Strickland, Schneider, Father Wenandy. It's like watching a clown at a Shakespearean play, with you thinking the audience is laughing with you rather than at your tragic attempt to fit into a world of intellect and grace you sadly just don't seem to comprehend. Son, I say this again, come back from the precipice. Compared to these good men whom you've attacked and misrepresented, your wisdom is the equivalent of a toddler's scribble next to a Renaissance masterpiece. It really is. These are men who've seen wars. They've felt loss. They've lived through trials that would make your deepest YouTube existential crisis look like a month-old bowl of soggy Cheerios. These are men who've lived in community. They've prayed in community. They've theologized in community. And I tell you, respect their wisdom. What's coming off is that you seem like you are an ambitious spiritual tourist, a fair weather believer who's yet to realize that true faith isn't a fashion accessory to be flaunted in front of a camera. True faith is a journey that requires humility, patience, community, submission to authority, and the kind of resilience that comes from weathering the storms of life, not just reading a few verses in a leather-bound book to sound erudite. My prayer is that you come back from the cliff. Your talent could be used for good. Leave the dark side, son. If you continue on this path of sanctimonious sneering at your betters, not me, but these men I've mentioned, it makes the rest of us look bad with all the infighting. Michael, you're hurting the whole team here, son. Each snide remark you make about their faith is a testament to your own ignorance, a neon sign flashing "I know nothing" in the face of their lifelong commitment. You're a mayfly in a world of ancient oaks, the Burkes, the Mullers, the Schneiders, the Stricklands, the Shevchuks. And when the day comes, and it will come, when the day comes that your fickle interests shift to the next trendy belief system, I saw you put out a video chasing UFOs in New Jersey, by the way. But when it shifts to the next trendy...
What?
Wait, okay, wait, listen closely.
Schneiders, the Stricklands, the Shevchuks. And when the day comes, and it will come, when the day comes that your fickle interests shift to the next trendy belief system, I saw you put out a video chasing UFOs in New Jersey, by the way.
I think this part here, like predicting a shift to something else, it was not right.
Okay. Well, I think I was just laughing at the chasing UFOs in New Jersey thing.
Yeah. I really didn't like this. I think that's like pretty much universally harmful to say you are going to switch to a different belief system. I don't think that's good.
I don't know. I think we could interpret this as something of a prediction, or saying that
I know how it can be interpreted. I'm just talking about what its usual effects are. I don't see Lofton benefiting from that particular comment at all. Especially someone like Lofton.
Yeah, because I know that he has OCD and attaches on to things like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But remember to like the video, by the way, both videos.
But when it shifts to the next trendy belief system, these good shepherds, they will still be there, knee-deep in the sacred soil of their convictions, probably supplicating to heaven on your behalf because your paper-thin piety just didn't suffice. They'll be praying for you because, unlike you, they've earned our respect through a lifetime of devotion, not just a couple of years of bandwagon hopping and virtue signaling to susceptible followers. Instead of using your gifts for the service of God's kingdom, you are very quickly becoming the Jerry Springer of Catholic YouTube, a desperate attempt at relevance by wrapping yourself in the sacred garb of a faith you couldn't hope to understand in 80 lifetimes. I know I can't. It is a mystery flowing from the inner life of the Trinity. So take your rationalism, your ultramontanism, the pride, all of that. Take your seasonal musings, and instead, son, just pray the Jesus prayer. Begin anew. It will do you and everyone else a lot of good, Michael. Maybe then you realize that true wisdom isn't found in the comment section of a YouTube video, but in the quiet, unshakable belief of those who've lived a lifetime of faith without the need for fame or vain validation. Come back from the precipice and use your talents for good.
That was very good. What? This is a very bad look for this priest, Scholastic Answers, and Catholic YouTube for disagreeing with Michael Lofton.
I don't know what the bad look is exactly. The rebuke ought to have been private if the effects and the people who need to hear the rebuke would be only Lofton himself. This is not the case. If you read, for example, the Catholic Encyclopedia article about defamation, you'll see exactly what it says about the necessity, which is down to the prudential judgment of the speaker, the necessity of sometimes speaking in a way that damages somebody's reputation publicly. This priest has radically rooted in the sacrament of holy orders, and also from his education, he has a special duty compared to people like us, especially since he belongs to the same ritual church, to speak about this. Especially because he feels that his tradition has been misrepresented. That this is absolutely something he's supposed to do.
Mm. That ending was very good. You can tell, like, even if we disagree with him at certain points, like, yeah, I didn't like the way in which he used ultramontanism. Okay, whatever.
No, neither do I. I mean,
like, it's whatever.
It's just like the
pious priest, and
it's the Dr. K like hyperpapelism thing, but by another word, right? Basically, it's just when somebody has a higher view of papal magisteriology than me, they're an ultramontanist. It's not supposed to be used like that. I don't know why he did that, but yeah.
But it's language is conventional. It's a conventional sign. Aristotle on Interpretation Book 1, words are conventional signs. So, Father can use the word ultramontanist in that way, although I don't like it.
When did people? When did Father accuse? When
I don't think he characterized Latin theology as rationalism. I think he was using rationalism only for Lofton. He was using it in a broad sense as a theology which is not the vital fruit of prayer, a theology which is not rooted principally in the assent of faith. I mean, these are things that I myself have brought forward as problems which are common. We see this a lot of times with converts, especially converts from a Muslim background, and it's very damaging, and it's totally in line, and it's completely necessary to speak about this. Absolutely, especially with the assent of faith stuff that he brought up earlier. Although I wish he would have, because I heard him say that and I knew exactly what he was talking about, but I know that a lot of people, because they aren't used to thinking about theology as rooted and subalternated to, not subalternated, but rooted in the assent of faith. A lot of times people aren't used to thinking about theology like that. So I wish he would have, talked about this a bit more.
When did he accuse Lofton of being a heretic? I don't know why people are claiming this. Wait, he defamed Lofton as an ultramontanist. Dude, there is no, like, he used ultramontanism as like a section of a spectrum. Like he was very clear about this. There was like minimalizing and then over maximizing papal power. He didn't say there is a particular condemned heresy and Lofton is committing it. He never did that. I don't think that the accusing Father of saying this about Lofton is fair. I have a lot of issues with things that Father has said in this video, but I don't think that's fair at all.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. What is the name of the video that I did on public dissent? Let me find out. Yeah, I went over a lot of stuff with public dissent. There's a lot of good documents about this. USCCB actually has a very good document about this, and I use that as well. So I link some resources if you wanted to check that out. Never dissent, Pope-splainers are wrong. Yeah, it's kind of a
the videos. Sometimes it's actually difficult to find what videos based on what they're actually about, because sometimes the title is a bit confusing.
Yeah. It's never dissent. Pope-splainers are wrong. Just look up public dissent, scholastic answers, and you should be able to find it.
Yeah.
Here's the link if anybody wants to hear about this. Reprimanding can be good. Airing out. No. Hassan already clarified this. This isn't the traditional Catholic view of correction. This is like a meme.
This mentality is what led to like thousands of children getting raped in America.
You can't. You have to say "graped," dude. This is YouTube. That would also be very inappropriate to use language like that. Did you actually write that resolution for the new North Dakota bill? Yes, I did. And there's a lot more North Dakota stuff that I will be helping on. So yeah. Okay, let's see if there's anything else I want to respond to. We almost hit 2 hours. Yeah, we did hit 2 hours.
Yeah. Well, I think in terms of like actually reaching Lofton, I doubt that this was going to be effective. It seems like more like an open letter defending certain people or a certain side of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
I obviously don't like the way that people who don't believe in infallible safety, the way that we do, are getting treated by people like Lofton. I don't like basically this way of accusing everybody who doesn't believe in objective safety in this way of being a heretic. This just isn't right. It's better to take the extreme position that should never dissent. No, actually, and since the magisterium says no, then you kind of got to catch 22, because the magisterium explicitly teaches that there are times when that's not the case.
Yeah, and I mean that actually, because what a lot of people would label as public dissent, for example, disagreeing with a recent magisterial statement in favor of an older, higher weight teaching. To disagree with a recent magisterial statement on the basis of an older, higher weight teaching isn't public dissent. That's an obligation which follows from the assent of faith. Like, it's your obligation to hold to higher weight teachings. So that, far from being public dissent, that's actually something which is characteristic of an individual who is docile to the teaching of the magisterium. As long as one is careful to establish that there is proper disagreement, that you haven't misunderstood either one of the documents, and also even when they are characteristically in opposition, to seek some sort of benefit theologically or spiritually of the recent teaching.
Timothy Gordon has encouraged sedevacantism. He said it would be, he basically thinks that it's very attractive because he wouldn't be like beholden to having to deal with the current disputes. He has encouraged it in public.
Yeah, and also dissent, when you call dissent a sin, you have to be very careful, because dissent is a very precise dissent is a very precise term for a very precise sin. Like, dissent doesn't mean like refusing assent, simply speaking. That's not what dissent means. And public dissent is not simply airing out a disagreement in the public forum. Like, there's very, very precise formulations and definitions given in Dona Veritatis, and then also in the USCCB document on, I think it's called like On the Teaching Role of Bishops. I think that's what the document is called off the top of my head. But yeah, you have to be very, very careful when you make statements like that. And then when you accuse people of these sins. Leave stream. Okay, people are telling me to leave stream.
Well, there is a case, like, for example, when Lofton accused Cardinal Zen of dissent on Fiducia Supplicans, I think that that's a case where you can say, okay, it's clear that Cardinal Zen made an accusation and didn't really closely read the document. Because if you read like a translation of the Chinese article that Cardinal Zen wrote, it's like clearly the things he's accusing of being contained in the document are not contained in the document. That's quite serious. So that would be an example of something that comes closer to public dissent. And even from a prelate, that would still be bad. But as a layman, you definitely can write something like that. So not sticking up for Lofton, but I think Gordon and Marshall are worse for Catholicism.
Baptizing the servant, the slave of God, in the name. Oh, you're keeping up on your Greek, Hassan. No, it's baptizetai, so he baptizes the
Dete.
servant of God in the names. So it's the isn't that the form of the baptismal formula?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! I just realized the name. It's so over.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh no! Why? Okay, so basically I think that Taylor Marshall is like leagues worse for Catholicism than either Timothy Gordon or Lofton. But I think for their own followers, Timothy Gordon is probably the worst. And Lofton, just in terms of like general effects in like Twitter and Discord areas, Lofton's probably the worst effect. But Taylor Marshall, like a lot of people don't take him seriously in these kinds of circles anymore. If you look through his live chats, it's just like kind of schizoid people, you know. Yeah, pretty much.
I follow. Okay. We're not going to talk about papal heresy stuff because I think Trendy. Unfortunately, I think that you might have a misinterpretation of Saint Alphonsus, but that's kind of a story for a different stream, different day.
Remember the distinction between
that's crazy. Trendy on the W Post-Planer train.
Yeah, but it's also that I think in terms of when I said I think Tim Gordon's the worst for his viewers, I think it's because of his views on the evangelical councils, his views on moral theology, and his view on Catholic social teaching. I think it's all basically made up based on his own personal ideas and convictions, and that a lot of it is satanic and antichrist, and that it will lead thousands of people to hell.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
Yeah.
But anyways, I think this is about it. All that we wanted to say. I don't see any particular clarifications that we need to make. I think we were adequately clear here, and I think we've given a solid, sober analysis of everything that went on. Your mom is friends with Timothy Gordon. Oh my goodness, it's over.
Why is your opinion on Taylor Marshall the way it is? Anyone who basically tries to do any due diligence on any of the claims that he makes realizes that he probably knows that what he's saying is not true. Also, anybody who knows anything on background, anybody who knows him, anybody who knows anyone who's known him for a while, especially, there's a lot going on there. There's also the Pachamama thing that he was involved in. That was very serious, and basically like astroturfing controversy, the degree to which he has like publicly flirted with sedevacantist ideas, the degree to which he rashly judges again, but the rash judgment I don't think is real. I think it's just for controversy, the same way exactly what Father was saying about Michael Lofton. I think Taylor Marshall's similar.
Wagner. Oh my gosh, Trendy. He's bringing up the Baroque Jesuits. I think they were wrong because they misinterpreted Innocent the Third. Is it Innocent the Third or Innocent the Fourth? I can't remember. But anyways, Wagner, can you? This was the final shebang, and then I'll end the stream. Your mom has done shows with him and Trent. Tim. Oh. Can you invite Lofton on for a stream? Yes. If Lofton wants to come on and talk about anything and any issues that he has with me or I have with him, like I've always said that Lofton is perfectly fine. I don't have personal animus against him or anything like that. I just want to I want to see him like anyone else with such an audience to flourish and to bring forward actions consistent with the proper duty of Catholic action.
To be honest, it would be so nice if he could just be spoken to and he wouldn't like immediately lock down and crash out whenever he smells something slightly offensive to him. That's like the fact that he basically like ended the possibility of a conversation based on a rash judgment of you where he accused you of being like some kind of weird rad trad. That was ridiculous. You're probably, in these circles, you're probably the person with, in principle, the closest view to him as well, which is really crazy.
Yeah, that was the background. If anybody is actually curious, is that Lofton and I actually used to talk in private a lot through Facebook Messenger. We talked about a lot of different things, theological and otherwise. And then randomly, he thought that I was a rad trad through some sort of like, um, tweet or something of that sort, some sort of meme. He thought that I was a rad trad. So he immediately like crashed out, cut me off, and then started speaking badly about me to others. He's cut off opportunities that I've had with certain shows and interviews and things like that. He can't, even things like contributions to like written work has been cut off from Lofton's influence.
That's something I
He's
want. Yeah,
very vindictive about a lot of different things. And I mean, then he accuses me of rad tradism, which is just,
Look,
as many of you guys know.
Alex says Lofton is convinced that Wagner is a troll or tried to harm him personally. Well, the fact of the matter is that Lofton convinced himself that Wagner was a troll who tried to harm him personally. And then he went on to be a troll who continuously harmed Wagner personally.
Yeah, a lot of people.
And obviously, I'm saying that as this guy's friend who cares about what he's trying to accomplish in his apostolate, his career, the well-being of his family, etc. I know for a fact that Lofton has thrown spanners into the works many times on important things that were for the greater good that Christian wanted to do just because he could, just because he didn't want he didn't want to be in smelling distance of this guy digitally, basically.
Yeah,
that's terrible.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. So I mean, a lot of people ask like, "Hey, why did you like troll Lofton here or there?" And like, I mean, a lot of it is, at least I think, in a sort of good natured and not like malicious way. I don't at least think that from a self examination point that I was malicious at all. But it's like you really have to know the lore behind what he did in many ways privately to try to gatekeep a lot of the community, which really doesn't matter anymore now that I'm at the place that I'm at right now. I don't really need any sort of, and I don't need Lofton opening any doors to me since he seems to have burned all the bridges to those doors. So it doesn't really matter now, but I'm still open and fine with talking to him. And I've told him, I've mentioned it publicly and multiple times. I'm like, it doesn't even have to be public. I don't care about it being public. Like if you privately reach out to me and want to talk, phone call, email, message, anything like that, and talk about what you have issues with me and I have issues with you, and I will never mention it to a soul. Like it doesn't have to be anything public or anything like that. But unfortunately, my cries have fallen on deaf ears, so there hasn't really been any reciprocity from the Lofton side. But anyways, is there anything else that we wanted to cover? Is this good?
I just wanted to say one last thing. Basically, I believe that the format, the way that you're doing things, in contrast to the way that other guys on YouTube who are trying to talk about Catholicism do things, is the best way of doing things, and that's existed so far. Not that it is necessarily perfect, but it's the best way of doing things that's existed so far. And I hope that more people pick up this way of doing things instead of the route of going through outdated academic rabbit holes where you will publish books and articles that cost too much money, no one will read, and are inaccessible to people such that they can have real effects on the laity.
Thank you, Hassan. I appreciate it.
A
lot going down the road. I want to expand, want to do more, wider, bigger, better, and looking forward to it. But I think this is it. I'm tired. I think this was a good stream. Thank you, Hassan. If anybody, by the way, Hassan, he does work with Tavnet. Tavnet is a group. I work with it. It's very good. That works for the evangelization and the giving of the sacraments to Catholics who are from Muslim backgrounds. So you can contact Hassan if you ever want to help. If you want to contribute to that, want to contribute resources, time, anything really. Hands, people that actually want to work that don't need to be babied. That's very important. You can reach us on Discord. What's your Discord? And also on email if you email.
Posted my stuff in the chat.
Okay, so that's on the screen for his Discord and his email. That's all. And notice the different spellings. Okay, the different spellings.
Yeah,
we'll try to.
We need volunteers for a lot of things. It doesn't matter if you are qualified to do catechesis, if you have the time to do catechesis. Things as small as just like making friends with some people, helping stragglers and people who are not doing very well to pray and to be socially involved in the community, encouraging people who feel isolated because they haven't found any other converts who live near them. There's a lot of things you guys can do. Seriously.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I need hands. Christian can tell you himself, like there are days where I do way too much work and it's because I don't have enough hands.
Absolutely. And the thing is you can know with the TAV network, and this is something that I was telling my wife actually before I left for North Africa, is with these people, they literally have nobody else. There's like no other people who really even seem to care, to be honest, as bad as that sounds. There's not really anybody who has actively put in effort to help these people, people who have been without sacraments for a very long time. Met a guy who was been Catholic for over 20 years and he'd still not been baptized. It's, a lot of people who are in distressing circumstances, could be kicked out of their houses, have serious family issues. People who are a lot of them are ready and willing to learn. A lot of them are from backgrounds where they can very much have the potential to be very, very good Catholics, much better disposed towards our moral, spiritual, and intellectual heritage than most Westerners are. So your work, any work that you do, is going to be to a very good cause. But that's all that I have for you guys. And as always, God bless.
If you really enjoy this channel, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/militant Thomist. At the first level, you get access to the private Discord. At the second level, you get access to weekly bonus videos. At the third level, you get access to free translations, articles, and notes on the Summa of St. Thomas. On the fourth level, you get access to course videos and DM questions. And beyond this, there are many other benefits, so please make sure to check out patreon.com/militant Thomist. Do you want to have access to more videos and custom interaction whilst also helping out the channel? If so, please consider becoming a YouTube member. At the first level, for only $3 a month, get access to custom emojis to use in live streams and in the comment section. At the second level, for only $5 a month, get access to a weekly bonus stream. At the third level, for only $10 a month, get access to priority replies on all your comments. Click the join button below or the link in the description to find out more.